Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on podcasts, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. We're talking about the Uvalde school massacre again today because there's a lawsuit that the parents of the massacred children filed against Instagram and Call of Duty video game and Daniel Defense in Los Angeles. So we're talking about that specific court case. And with us is Dr. Delatorre in the middle. He's a forensic psychologist. On one side, we have Kirk Harrison, who's a co-host with me at Talk Law Radio, and Blake Newberry, attorney for Marquardt Law Firm. So this lawsuit that was filed in California alleges some of these things I'm going to talk about now. That Activision, the maker of Call of Duty, is in the wildly lucrative business of training adolescents to become gunmen. Its first-person shooter franchise, Call of Duty, creates a vividly realistic and addicting theater of violence in which teenage boys learn to kill with frightening skill and ease. Call of Duty is a simulation, not a game. It teaches players how to aim, reload, and fire accurately while habituating the teenage nervous system to inflict repeated graphic violence. And though the killing is virtual, the weapons are authentic. They are designed to perfectly imitate their real-life counterparts in look, feel, recoil, and accuracy. This cunning form of marketing has helped cultivate a new youthful consumer base for the AR-15 rifle, the weapon of choice for most Call of Duty players and mass shooters. So that's just one of the allegations there, but there's a lot to unpack. I want you, Blake, since you're a player of this game, tell us what it's like.
So, I mean, for myself and the general population that plays it, I mean, most of the time when you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing it online. You're playing it with friends. You're playing it against people that are all over the world. And, I mean, the allegations of the finding the attachments for a weapon, the gun print of the weapon, I mean, they do have different classes and subclasses of guns, and based upon the weapon that you choose, you can add attachments to it, sights, things of that nature to increase the range, increase damage, increase or decrease recoil, but the attachments also can affect it in such a way. But for the average person playing it, when you add those things, you're doing it from a standpoint of the objective of the game, whether it's team deathmatch, which is just whoever gets the most kills, or if it's a objective type game where it's you get the most points based upon being on a target, or not a target, or a space for a certain amount of time. But you build the weapon for the purpose of helping you to achieve these goals. It's not to kill people. The mindset isn't, oh, I'm building a gun that then I'm going to go into the real world, buy and build myself to inflict damage on a human. It's more about fun, team building with your friends, and just having a good time. And it's not the mindset of, I'm going to do this in real life.
Yeah. So you didn't feel like that you were actually killing a person.
No, and I feel like the game also, I mean, the guns don't jam. Guns jam in real life. They don't teach you how to get rid of a jam. The reload is a button. You press X or square on PlayStation, and it reloads the weapon for you. You have unlimited clips, like you can fire one bullet and reload. That's not true to real life. Mm-hmm. The guns also have bullets that aren't true to real life. So there's aspects of the game that it doesn't teach you how to hold a weapon. Sure, you can pull a trigger, but it doesn't teach you how to hold it, how to use it, how to reload it.
Because you're holding a controller.
Right.
Well, I can tell you from a military point of view that it ain't like that, okay? You're going to have to learn, okay? And the other deal is, you would be surprised how many people do just fine on the firing range, but when someone else is shooting at them, all that training, and that's why it's so repetitive in the military, because it has to be automatic or else you're not going to be there anymore. And it's not the same. You're not, look, those guys that are on those games, I've seen these guys, I've seen screens and all of it. They're like experts. They're like all SEALs, okay? They're good. They're rolling. They're spinning. They're shooting. The reason there's so few SEALs, there's so few people that know how to do it like that. That's why. And that's why certain people are trained and certain people are chosen to take those roles. But out in real life, it's just not like that.
Yeah, and there is a difference between what is a video game and what is either augmented reality or simulation. There are military personnel that are being trained using simulators. Pilots have long since been using simulators. Yeah. But the difference is that the environment in which they surround themselves as part of the simulation, right? They have a weapon in their hand. Now it's clearly not able to fire, but they have a weapon in their hand, so they get the feeling of what that's like. Pilots, same thing. They have a cockpit built around them. Now, individuals who are drawn to violent video games do have, at least it's been shown in some research, that they do have hyperarousal. They do like things that get them up, right? They do like being excited, and playing these video games excites them. But I think the key here, what Blake was talking about, is that the individuals who are going to engage in an act of mass violence are isolative. They're not playing video games online with a bunch of friends. They are not interacting well with anyone around them. And so they become more and more detached, which is part of the problem, because the more detached they feel from other people, the more they're going to view other people as the objects. And they may have turned to violent video games as a method of fantasy playing, but that doesn't mean that they are now practicing how to actually engage in this behavior.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because I was wondering about some of the warning signs that parents or teachers or even friends can notice about other kids or other people. You said that they're isolated a lot of the time, and there's probably some other risk factors. Are there?
Yeah, no, there's a ton, but I think the problem is that who can see them? The entry point into the pathway to violence, which is something that we talk about as threat assessment professionals. Once you enter into the pathway to violence, there's an accumulation of things that are going on that eventually leads to you acting out in this behavior. But the main entry point is what's called grievance gathering. And grievance gathering, something happens to you and you blame the world for the world being a bad place. And so then you start seeing all the bad things and start interpreting all of the things that have negative consequences as being bad things specifically directed towards you. But the reality is that, Blake, you could have grievance gathering right now, and neither one of us would actually know that you are experiencing those things. Right? You could easily be feeling short shrift because, I don't know, you're not talking as much as maybe you thought that you did, as much as you wanted to.
Interesting.
And Kirk and I mean, we're not mind readers. We would have no idea that that's actually happening. But if you get to a point where everything starts becoming evidence that the world is against you, then you have to start plotting on how you can get your agency back, how you can start getting your power back.
Right.
And the only way that I think a lot of men, and this is more societal in its issue, the only way that a lot of men feel as though they can get their power back is by engaging in aggressive behavior.
I can see that.
Saying that, that's been going on for a long time. What you're saying, that whole string you're going down is long before video games.
Yes.
This has been something, I've read articles where guys that have been, murderers that have killed people here and there, they get to that point, and when you mention that grievance thing, that's what kind of triggered me thinking about it, because that was something they always mentioned, this person, and really when the grievance, when it's examined from the other side, it's almost like,
We had it's
the one trigger that did it. It wasn't a big thing. You're like, what the heck? But the
but not for you.
Yeah,
but for that individual.
But they've been building to that point, and that was that one thing. So saying that it's the video game is a difficult stretch to get to there, because up to that point, as you're saying, it's a long walk before you get to there.
And I think too, some individuals are more susceptible than others. Right. I remember my dad whenever I was growing up was always like, I'll let you play these games. Because I was 9 years old playing Grand Theft Auto 3 in Vice City. And my dad was like, I'll let you play these, but the moment you show you cannot handle playing them and you start acting it out outside of the video game or just talking about how fun it is, he said, I'm not going to let you play it. So he told me a story about one of his friend's kids acting out, and they didn't let the kid play it anymore. So I think there are breaking points. It's really, parents really need to know, but I think also some individuals are more susceptible to it than others.
Yeah.
But those individuals are going to be the ones that are going to be more likely to cause effects such as that.
That's a different direction than the direction of violent video games or violent media of any kind causes violence. Yeah. What we're talking about in that scenario is that the individual has already wanted and fantasized about being violent, but they didn't know how to do so. So they found a game or a movie or a TV show or something, a book or a comic, in which the violent fantasies can be expressed. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned comics there. One of the guys at the office mentioned that in Japan, there's all kinds of violent media, but there's a very low rate of violence in their society, and so it cannot be a direct cause. Have you ever met a psychologist, an expert that would testify that there is a direct cause, or is that just never going to be found?
No, I would never say never. There's always someone who will engage in an alliance bias in which, they feel bad because all of this stuff has happened to these families. They're persuaded by other kinds of things to make these statements. And again, the research that we have is 50-50, right? You look at one group of research articles and it says, yeah, it absolutely does, and your aggressiveness is going to be, exponential. Then you look at another handful and it's going to be like, no, it doesn't, or if it does, it's so incrementally small as to not be.
Yeah, when you bring in the empirical data, that's got to be like, you really got to dig to find that number. I mean, that percentage, and I can't throw it off the top of my head, but I guarantee it's down around the 1 or 2%, maybe less than that, compared to all the people that watch this game. That the ones that become triggered or the ones that go off on these violent behaviors. It's got to be tiny. Again, it's going to be, the legal eagles that are going to get in there, and they're going to pound on that side of the house and see if they can turn it.
We got to take another break, so stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.